The story is his faithfulness. So as we've been going through this thing about vision, Dan and I didn't talk anything about what God showed us that Sunday until hours later. We were at home, we were working on other projects. And I said, what did God show you? And he said, same thing. And that we were to be diligent. Keep doing what we're doing. So our story goes back 25 years. We were living here in Spokane. I was finishing college and went into architecture. I said, Lord, now that I'm graduated, what firm do you want me to go into? And he said, you're not going into a firm. I have something better for you. And I threw a temper tantrum. That was the only thing he ever showed me. That was the whole direction he gave me all through college. That was confirmation after confirmation after confirmation that was the direction he was sending me. And then he tells me I can't do that. What? I cried. I threw fits. I kept going in circles. What do I do now? I went into journalism. I eventually went into politics. Ultimately, that's how I ended up here. But the point was, we had only been married. We got married just before my thesis. That was smart. But he took me through a horrible time with an atheist professor that hated my project that God put on my heart. My husband kept me alive through that. So that we go through this period of what do we do now? Where do we go now? And suddenly my husband looks at me, and we had known each other for 8 years. Our families were very close. And he looks at me and he says, tomorrow I'm going to take you to the ranch. And I said, what ranch? I had known him all this time, and I never knew anything about this. So he says, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. I'm just going to take you there. That night we had matching dreams. And I grew up Pentecostal, so I'm like, okay, God's talking to us. This is a thing. He grew up Lutheran. He was still trying to figure out what this all was about with dreams and visions and, weird things. Exactly, frozen chosen. So as we're talking, he's getting quieter and quieter as I tell him what my dream was about, and he tells me what his dream was about. And I didn't know this at the time, but those two locations were 8 feet apart. Same scenario, same place, a place I had never seen. So we showed up the next day, and believe me, this is out in the sticks. I mean, way out in the sticks. And we pull up to this place, and right in front of me is the very building that was in my dream. To the detail. I'm talking, I now know this building was put there in 1926. It's a frontier-style catalog house. And it was falling down. It still is. But every detail was exact. And his uncle, that I had never met before, walks up to me and says, I want you to know that Dan is my son. He's my only heir, and that makes you my daughter. And that makes this your home. And I want you to be comfortable here. The man was not a believer at the time. So we took that dream and said, okay, Lord, this is where we're going to be. We're going to work towards this. We're just going to trust you. And for 11 years, we tried everything. Okay, did we rent a corner of the property from him and put a trailer out there and live there so we can work there and get things done? And none of that worked. 11 years after that, he came down with lung cancer, and it metastasized. And my mother-in-law and I spent trips going back and forth, taking him to the cancer doctors, and we're witnessing to him the whole time. And one of those trips with my mother-in-law, he accepted Christ. Yeah, it was amazing. So that next trip I took with him, there's a spot where you come into our ranch, and you're up above, and you can see the entire expanse. And I parked there, and I said, Uncle, let me tell you what this is all about, because you're now a part of the family. And I was able to tell him what God had shown us. And he spent the next 3 weeks of his life pouring into us everything that he could about this place, the history. He did make sure to tell us there was no treasure buried there. So thankfully we haven't wasted time looking for any. But that, when he passed away, it was like a mantle fell. It's time. It's time to get working. We've now lived there for 15 years, something like that. And it's a lot of work. It's 130 years old. It's falling apart. They never put metal roofs on everything. It's a disaster. But I tell you, I spend every day doing architecture. Every skill I learned in college for that career that I wanted, I do every day. So when we had this vision exercise a few weeks ago, and we're talking about it, and I got to thinking about it, and I said, Dan, do you realize what month it is? It's August. It's 25 years from the day we were given the vision. And he renewed it to us. And he said, you're doing what I told you to do. Just keep going. Just keep going. He is faithful to every detail. Those visions that he's giving you, some of them may be very abstract. Some of them you may just be hearing, trust me. But every detail is exact, and he will bring it about.